Let's move on to Clicks Group, which is a Cape Town-based health and beauty-focused retail and supply group, which has been listed on the JSE since 1996, and it has over 600 stores across Southern Africa. 600 stores, that's a hefty distribution.
Yeah, it's got a market cap of 22.3 billion, price to earnings ratio of 24.9, and a dividend yield of 2.2%.
And Paul, this is where Chris's earlier comments around Dis-Chem come into play, because Dis-Chem is a strong competitor to the Clicks story, but obviously unlisted at this point.
Yeah, look, I mean, we were very favorably disposed towards Clicks, but I think for a lot of people, Dis-Chem's rapid entry to the market, its very substantial stores have built the market. I mean, you would expect that perhaps Clicks had suffered as a result of this big competitor really gaining market share, but it almost seems to me that the whole market has expanded. Because as I think we'll see in a minute when we look at the Clicks share price, it hasn't done badly at all. It's remained pretty resilient.
Let's get that share price up on the screen, and that's the resilience that Paul is referring to. Chris, you can't argue with it.
Yeah, although having said that, I would, and I'm not a technical analyst by any stretch of the imagination, but Paul, I would say maybe there's a double top in prospect there.
Any thoughts on the double top formation that we're seeing on this share price graph, Paul?
Look, remember about 5 years ago, Clicks was in real trouble. Maybe it's a few years before that, in fact. But remember, David Neal, who was an ex-Boots man, came down and really turned the group's fortunes around. He's now at the end of his stay. There's a guy called Keith Warburton who's been moved in as CEO of the group, or going to be. I don't know. I mean, it's got a couple of extra arrows in its bow. Remember, it's got that whole Clicks Club card thing happening. And whenever you buy at the Clicks store, you get offered the card. And then the biggest issue for them is tracking your purchases and your preferences and communicating with you. It also owns UPD, which is that distribution business, which does chronic care drug distribution. The stores remain, you know, in dynamic environments. There's a lot of stuff being sold at the front of store. The pharmacy element has perhaps been a little tricky, but it does seem to have settled down after the government shift to that single exit pricing thing. More and more people have got medical aid cover, so they're able to do that whole medical switching thing where you go to the pharmacy and you at the front of the pharmacist and you select what it is you need, and then the payment goes off and you either work out whether you're in the self-payment gap or not. I don't know. I mean, it just remains a strong seller.
I want to come in here, considering we're in the retail space. I want to ask Chris whether he's heard of Stickies. The Pick and Pay Stickies campaign.
Yes, you get these funny little sticky things that you get for every however much you spend at Pick and Pay.
Taking the world by, well, South Africa by storm. Let me tell you, if you are the parent of children, I'm assuming under 10 or maybe even older, you cannot shop anywhere else because you need to accumulate these stickies. It's revolutionizing the retail space. But something like that would work for the Clicks Group, which is why it's relevant.
But you know, I think you've hit on a broader thing here, Bronwyn, the fact that Clicks is also competing head-on with the supermarkets. Over many, many years, the supermarkets have broadened their range. I mean, you only have to go into the Pick and Pay store down at on the William Nicol and see the big range of cosmetics and pharmaceuticals they have there. So they're taking strain there. Paul mentioned UPD, United Pharmaceutical Distributors. That to me is the biggest strength that Clicks has got, because no other competitor really has that. And I just feel that, you know, perhaps a lot of the other parts of the business are not nearly as good. And the other thing, of course, let's not forget that when it comes to the rest of Africa, Clicks has not been a particularly good performer.
Expand on UPD, just for those that aren't familiar with the model, Paul.
Yeah, as far as I understand it, this is not through the stores. So this is where you have, you know, a little vehicle that comes to the old age home to deliver everybody's heart and high blood pressure medication. So it's where the medical aids contract with them. And then in addition to that, they do the distribution of pharmaceutical stuff to other pharmacies and to other suppliers on behalf of the pharmaceutical companies.
Chris is nodding in studio, so you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, UPD is a great operation.
Right.
A couple of other things, though. They did a deal with GNC, which was a company manufacturing some of those supplements. Remember, that's a big seller. Those supplements, a big category, a big successful thing. And then Clicks also owns Musica. Now, people thought Musica was done, absolutely done, because of, you know, iTunes and that sort of thing. But of course, there's a big gamer distribution thing that happens, and those stores remain relatively successful, and that unit or that division still doing fine.
Has it always been a question mark, Chris, the
It's always been a big
Musica
question
element?
mark. I think one of the saving graces for Musica is the fact that our broadband here is so lousy. It's expensive, it's not very good, it's incredibly slow. I think once that changes, if that changes, then I think Musica could be in danger, like HMV and Virgin have been in the UK.
Paul, hot or not on Clicks?
Look, you know, you'd think with the conversation we've been having that this one would definitely be not hot, because there all seem to be these competitive threats, and the big players like the ShopRite Group and Pick n Pay also having pharmacies in store. But look at that share price. Clearly it's been continuing to do well, and I'm inclined to reward companies that the market votes in favour of. So I'm going to go with hot.
Chris, hot or not on Clicks?
Look, I like the company. It's great management, and David Neal, as Paul says, has done a fantastic job. But unfortunately, I can't get too enthusiastic about it for all of the negatives that I put in there, so not hot for me.
Not hot on Clicks.